To this now, the 2021 municipal elections have resulted in several hung municipalities. These include metros such as the city of eThekwini, Johannesburg, eKurhuleni, Tshwane and the Nelson Mandela Bay. To discuss the issue of hung municipalities, we're now joined by independent researcher Crispian Olver. Mr. Olver, thank you for your time and good morning to you. This is quite a phase in politics in South Africa that we're seeing here, more hung municipalities. What does it say about, voting behavior in the country? Perhaps even what the message the voters are trying to send across.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me on the show. I must say it's one of the lowest turnouts that we've had in municipal elections. So it certainly indicates that voters have been switched off by politics. And we've seen the ANC continue its decline in the municipal polls. Remarkably, the DA, which in the 2016 elections capitalized enormously on ANC weakness, in this instance, they weren't able to. They've dropped. So the story of this election is that the DA were unable to capitalize on ANC weakness. And you've seen a whole raft of smaller parties, Action SA, Patricia de Lille's Good Party, the IFP picking up the slack.
Yeah. So what work then lies ahead, if I may ask, Mr. Olver, about the political parties at this point? Because we know that some are saying they're not willing to work with the other. For example, the ANC not willing to work with their DA because they're saying that's our main opposition. We have Action SA saying they're not willing to also work with the ANC. Yesterday, its chairperson, Michael Beaumont, telling me that it would make it impossible for them to work with a party that they would be investigating on one hand and then perhaps even trying to balance, keeping their coalition, partnership or government, sustainable and smoothly there. So it would make for a very, very complicated relationship. So, I mean, it means there's a lot of work here for different parties to almost secure their futures in these municipalities.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's obviously a whole lot of positioning going on. And I've seen statements from both the ANC and the DA that they're not prepared to work together. These are the two parties that are occupying the center ground on the left and the right. But if you're ruling out any kind of grand coalition, it means that you've got to put together coalitions with a whole raft of smaller parties. And that's one, very complicated. Two, these smaller parties they all consider themselves kingmakers and they've got a slightly inflated sense of their own importance. And they try and extract, concessions beyond what their electoral base and mandate has given them. So it's very difficult. If you're ruling out grand coalitions around centrist parties, it makes the job that much harder. And it unfortunately makes these coalitions long-term much more unstable.
Yesterday, I also spoke to the Denmark's ambassador to South Africa, Mr. Tobias Riffel, and I mean, we're talking about coalitions working in Denmark. My question to you is, do they actually work in South Africa, in our South African context? Are you confident in them, given, of course, past coalitions that we have witnessed?
Yeah, I've spoken to Tobias before about the Danish experience, and certainly they've been able to, I think, build a level of political stability through these coalitions over many years, and they function really well. And it is a little bit of an indicator of political maturity. I mean, unfortunately, our coalitions haven't worked as well. I mean, there have been one or two instances where they're great, but on the whole, they've proven to be politically unstable. So each party continues to jostle for position and advantage, and these coalitions unraveled dramatically in the metros after 2016. So you know, I do think our politics needs to step up to the plate now. We've got 66 hung councils. We cannot consign those 66 municipalities to ongoing political instability. And I think there's a real onus on the parties to come together, to find common ground, and to build, you know, you've got to build a governing platform at the end of the day, and you've got to agree, you know, this can't just be about what short-term advantage can you extract from these coalitions. You've got to find common ground on, you know, what are we going to do about services? How are we going to pay for them? How are we going to make sure that the administration is stable and can get on with the job and deliver services to people? What are we going to do about keeping corruption out of the municipality?
All right, and we leave it there. And I appreciate your time this morning and talking to us. Crispian Olver, thank you so much for coming to the South African Morning.